According to many religions, the human soul can either ascend up into heaven or descend down into hell. To succeed in the journey to heaven, you have to become more ordered and good and surrender your will to the laws of the gods. Anyone who disobeys the gods and follows their own will loses the heavenly order of the gods, becomes more chaotic, and falls down the great chain of being into the womb of chaos, where they enter hell and meet the fallen angel Satan, who wanted to become a god herself and have a will of her own. In Kabbalah, the two opposite directions are called the right-hand path and the left-hand path. The right-hand path raises you back up to the Godhead, which originally emanated your soul. The left-hand path enables you to become your own immortal God and converts your individual will into the magical power to create life and structure your own universe with your divine intellect. But the left-hand path is harder and riskier than the right-hand path. It can dissolve your soul and body and lower them first into an animal form, then into the plant state, mineral, matter, and eventually nothingness, from which the nations of non-Israelites first emerged, and to which they will inevitably return when they are nullified as the world is rectified. Practical Kabbalah enables Kabbalists to rectify the present world Olam Hazeh by nullifying the nations so that they first become animals and ultimately return to the nothingness from which they are made and disappear forever. This is known as holy subterfuge, which cleanses away the impurity of the Kelipat so that the world to come, Olam Haba, is perfect and clean. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 15 to 17, expresses the belief that the nations are nothing, vanity, and should not exist. Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing, and Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beasts thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing, and vanity. Isaiah chapter 41, verses 23 to 24 and 29 claims that the Israelites are gods, but the nations are nothing and worship Satan, an abomination. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that ye are gods. Yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed, and behold it together. Behold, ye are of nothing, and your work of naught. An abomination is he that chooseth you. Behold, they are all vanity, their works are nothing, their molten images are wind and confusion. The Kabbalistic miracle worker, Baal Shem, and legendary father of the Golem of Prague, Judah Lerv ben Betzalel, wrote about the nullification of Gentiles in his 16th century work, Netzach Yisrael, chapter 14, page 83. Israel is special and separate from all the Gentiles, for the Gentiles are on a materialistic level, whereas Israel is on the form level. As Chazal said, "You are called men, and the nations are not called men," as though it were an ordinary thing for them that the comparison between Israel and the Gentiles is similar to the comparison between man and animals who cannot speak. And this is because man is distinct from animals, in that he is not materialistic and physical like the rest of the animal world. Man is intelligent. This is the level of Israel, for they are distinguished from the material and are not immersed in it. Likewise, with regard to Israel, the material is nullified compared to the soul. The material aspect is merely a transporter with the soul riding upon it, and the material is nullified, just like an ass is nullified by the secondary with regards to one who rides on it. So is the matter with Israel. When they fulfill the will of God, they alone are considered a transcendent form. However, in regard to the nations, It is the exact opposite, as though their soul is nullified compared to the body, and as though they are only body and material. The author or authors of the Galya Raza explained how to capture the souls of the nations through holy subterfuge and thereby nullify the nations, forcing them to descend into the nothingness of primordial chaos which initially spawned them. In this way, the Israelites could capture the souls of Esau's descendants and absorb them into the vessels of their own bodies. The process of the nullification of the descendants of Esau, of the nations, would ultimately result in the victory of the Israelites in the world to come, at which point they would be the only human beings remaining alive. The best way to do this was to subvert the leadership of the nations by having Israelites pretend to be the nations and mislead them into their own destruction by pitting them against one another so that they would destroy one another and nullify themselves through the practical Kabbalah of nullification. The Galya Raza appeared in the 16th century before Isaac Luria began to discuss the reincarnation of souls. Rachel Elior quoted from the anonymous and highly influential Galya Raza and explained its cryptic meanings in her article, The Doctrine of Transmigration, in Galya Raza. The Galya Raza described the trickery that must be employed by Jacob in order to deceive Esau. This had a long precedent both in the Old Testament, the Talmud, and the Zohar. In her insightful paper, Rachel Elior analyzed the Galya Raza and quoted from it extensively. I will read some of what she said and some of the passages that she translated within her paper. He placed hostility between the polluted side and the side of purity to prevent a mating between them. The religion strictly forbids the interbreeding of Israelites with non-Israelites. It is a segregationist and supremacist belief system meant to keep the holy seed pure. Ezra railed against those Israelites who intermarried with or otherwise went to bed with non-Israelites. Here you clearly have before you that all of these wars were so that the right side, i.e. the side of holiness, might rule over the Sitra de Smola and over the polluted side. That's a quote from the Galya Raza. The side of holiness is the Israelites, who are the lot of God. The Sitra de Smola, the left-hand side, is the side of impurity, the side of the non-Israelites, the nations. They are entirely evil with no redeeming qualities. Their fate is to be nullified and to return to the nothingness of the primordial chaos. The combination of impurity and sanctity is presented by the author of Galya Raza from two standpoints. That of the Klippa, which views an approach to the realm of sanctity as a return of existence to its correct state, and that of God, which explains the cleaving together of sanctity and impurity from a broad perspective, seeing in the various stages of history the possibility of contending against the Klippa by means of its own powers, that is, with holy subterfuge. In other words, the Galya Raza recommends subverting the non-Israelites, misleading them to destroy one another and themselves by means of their own power. In order to engage in this holy subterfuge against the non-Israelites, the Israelites employ trickery and deception and mislead the non-Israelites into believing that the Israelites are weak, powerless, and have humanitarian motives, when in truth, the ultimate goal of the Israelites is to exterminate all of the non-Israelites by nullifying them. Through the use of trickery, by teaching the non-Israelites self-destructive beliefs, giving them bad advice, and teaching them a religion which calls for them to fulfill the prophecies of the Israelites ultimately aim to exterminate all non-Israelites. Practical Kabbalah teaches them to pit non-Israelites against one another in self-consuming wars. They must carefully conceal the fact that they are out to destroy the non-Israelites, the evil other side. They often act clownish and weak to enable this deception and to prevent the non-Israelites from ever realizing that the Israelites are subverting them with this holy subterfuge. They flatter the non-Israelites in order to ingratiate themselves to them, and in order that the non-Israelites lower their guard. Rachel Elior continued her analysis of the Galya Raza. The ethos demanded of individuals in view of this conception of the nature of evil and its affinity with sanctity is twofold: to assist in the struggle of sanctity to expunge impurity on the one hand, and to appease and placate the Sitra Achra and flatter it on the other. The struggle is a subtle one, hinted at in the verse, Isaiah chapter 49, verse 17, "Your destroyers and they that made you waste will come out of you," which is applied to the Sitra Achra. That is to say, victory over the Klippa and overthrow of the Sitra Achra is achieved by means of ruses and cunning and the use of their own forces against themselves. And we find that the impure Klippa is annulled by its very own forces, and so it must be that truly its own forces will kick their master and nullify it and its impurity. As part of the second aspect of the ethos of the battle against the Sitra Achra, an individual is commanded to be scrupulous of its honor, for evil cannot possibly be altogether overcome before the redemption. And also one must be cautious not to be contemptuous of the Klippa and their powers. For we have found that the Holy One, blessed be He, ordered Moses and Aaron to honor Pharaoh, the earthly symbol of the Klippa, and also to pretend and flatter and conceal man's intention of fighting against the Sitra Achra. And for this reason, one must give some flattery to the Sitra Achra, so that it does not see that we wish its nullification. The Sitra Achra is the evil other side. It is the Sitra de Smola, the left-hand side. The Israelites are the Sitra de Yemina, the right-hand side, and the Sitra Hadosha, the holy side. They must dupe the evil other side, the non-Israelites, into destroying themselves, and they must appear humble and meek. Jacob bows to Esau 7 times. Jacob grabs Esau's heel and constantly deceives him. But in order to prevent Esau from seeking revenge, Jacob forever tries to appear flattering and honors Esau until that time when Jacob can openly exert his power over Esau and completely nullify him. Jacob bows 7 times, signifying the 7 days of creation, during which he must deceive Esau into believing that Jacob poses no threat, so that Jacob can intermingle with the descendants of Esau. The Israelites must always pretend to be friendly to the non-Israelites in the first 7 days of creation. After that, they will have destroyed Esau and will be able to openly exert their authority and openly speak their hatred, contempt, and genocidal intentions against Esau. The Sitra Achra, the non-Israelites, must be duped into using their own destructive powers against themselves and make waste of themselves. This is to be accomplished by mixing the pure and holy Israelites with the impure and evil non-Israelites, so that the Israelites can mislead and deceive the non-Israelites. That is why Tiberius Julius Alexander fulfilled the prophecies and created the diaspora so that they could mingle with the nations in all 4 corners of the earth and engage in holy subterfuge against them. Jacob bows 7 times before Esau, signifying the first 7 days of creation, during which Jacob will nullify Esau. In the 8th day, Esau will have been nullified, and Jacob will have no need to bow. Continuing to quote from Rachel Elior's article, "And the world, i.e. people, honors the Klippa for the fruit that dwells within it, as one honors a dog because of its master. And likewise the Torah commanded that honor and flattery be given to the Sitra Achra because of the purity which was hidden within it before the world was created. Also, when he gives them the name of God like other gods, another God, and the like, all of this flatters the Sitra Achra so that it will not accuse the children of Jacob. Therefore, it is proper to flatter them, and hence we see the reason why the Holy One, blessed be He, placed names of animals and beasts and fowl on his Merkabah, and a man to ride upon it, to show that all of them were created for man and to serve him. And just as we see that the Holy One, blessed be He, ordered us in the Torah regarding Azazel and the slaughter of sacrifices in the north, and the portions offered on the altar, and the fat which is burnt all night, in order to flatter them, so it is all the more necessary that we be cautious not to do anything to divulge that we wish to nullify this power, as it is written, Thou shalt not muzzle an ox on its threshing. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 4. Therefore our sages of blessed memory ordained in the blessing of thanksgiving that we bow down as we say we thank, to show that we do not wish to vanquish them, and in this way they will not accuse us. And blessed is He who gave us the Torah of truth, and warned us to keep separate from them, and from the shells of their shells, and to purify ourselves, and our foods, and our clothing, and our houses, with the prohibition against mixing linen and wool. The side of holiness, by contrast, wages a war of holy subterfuge and artifice, deceiving Samael by means of the union and marriage of great Jews with foreign women, the transposing of the souls of the reincarnated, and the allocations of portions of the commandments to appease and distract the accuser of Israel. The secret meaning of these forbidden marriages is inherent in the assumption that, for the sake of the battle against the powerful Sitra Achra, one must cooperate with it to weaken its power from within by redirecting its own forces. The klipa are shells which surround the holy seed, the holy spark, the holy light of Israel within them. This commingling enables the side of holiness to engage in holy subterfuge by duping the klipa, the shells of darkness, into destroying themselves. The sparks within thereby weaken from within the power of the Sitra Achra and ultimately cause it to nullify itself. The nullification of the Sitra Achra enables the Israelites to capture the souls of the non-Israelites, to steal them and to place them in the vessel of their own bodies. Continuing with Rachel Elior's article, The Doctrine of Transmigration in Galya Raza, which is found in the book Essential Papers on Kabbalah, edited by Lawrence Fine, she wrote, quoting the Galya Raza, Here you see why these marriages were made, to become thorns in the eyes of the Sitra Achra, to use against him the verse, Your destroyers and they that made you waste will come out of you. Thus permission was given to him so that he himself could make preparations for his own ill. On the historical level, the war against the Sitra Achra and its minions, the nations of the world, necessitates finding an element of impurity in the warrior on the side of sanctity, to allow him to mediate between chesed and din, because everyone who battles against evil must have some affiliation with evil itself. Only thus can one vanquish Satan with his own arms. For the Holy One, blessed be He, desired that when some king or hero arises to take revenge upon the nations, that there should be some bond or connection between the nations of the world and the king, who must be of the seed of Israel, in order to fulfill, Your destroyers and they that made you waste will come out of you. And you may see some proof in Joshua, who took Rahab, the harlot, as his wife, in order to overthrow the power of the 31 kings, and also Samson, who married foreign wives so as to overthrow the many Philistines, and also David, who is descended from Ruth, the Moabite, in order to overthrow the nations. And it is known to those who possess wisdom that everyone who was created to overthrow the adversaries of Israel must have some attachment to the Sitra de Smola. This substitution of souls took place by means of the reincarnation of sparks of the soul, and it served as a weapon against Samael, because the whole matter of the substitution of souls was not known to Samael. These are the secrets of metempsychosis. The secret of reincarnation was not known to Samael. The holy subterfuge was carried out by the exchange of souls, and therefore each one of the 7 daughters of the Sitra Achra was reincarnated in other righteous women. From within, and by foiling his plots by means of his own emissaries, the condition of "your destroyers and they that made you waste will come out of you" was fulfilled. The end of the process of metempsychosis and the transformation of the purified into the people of Israel on high, who are called the hosts of the Shekhinah, angels or men, represent the end of history and the completion of the victory of holiness over the Sitra Achra. This victory is expressed in the rescue of the Jewish people from the dominion of the Klippa and its transition from exile to eternity, or from the 7,000-year cycle of Din, judgment, to that of Chesed, mercy. These are references to the Kabbalistic tree of life, where Din sits on the pillar of severity and Chesed is in the middle of the pillar of mercy. Balance is achieved by combining them. Only Israelites are referred to as men. This stipulation is made clear in the Babylonian Talmud and in the views of Shimon ben Yochai. Metempsychosis is reincarnation. The souls of the non-Israelites are stolen through the process of reincarnation. First, the non-Israelites are nullified, which frees the sparks of their souls of Yechida Mashiach, the soul of Tohu, the soul of chaos, so that it can then be stolen by the Israelites and placed into the vessel of their bodies. The principle of the extermination of non-Israelites through their nullification by sending them into the nothingness of Tohu, primordial chaos, is maintained by contemporary Kabbalists, as evinced by the words of Rebbe Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, which are quoted in the book An End to Evil, Rashis Goyim Amalek, as translated by Rabbi Shalom B. Weinberg. They now took up positions facing him at the table. He turned aside a little and said, "Nu, let's start talking words of Hasidus, and then they will be altogether nullified." With that, he immediately embarked on the Ma'amar with these words, Rashis Goyim Amalek, Ve'achariso Adei Oved. Amalek is the first among nations, and in the end he shall be destroyed. Its theme is that the Kelipos do not have any true and intrinsic existence. They are non-entities. The conclusion of the above verse, "and in the end he shall be destroyed," seems to imply that the Klippa of Amalek contains no element that can be salvaged by means of the divine service called Birurim, i.e. the sifting and refining of materiality by elevating the divine sparks embedded within it. The Klippa of Amalek, so it would appear, cannot be rehabilitated into something positive, and therefore be brought to a state of rectification, tikkun. Rather, the only rectification of Amalek is its utter eradication and destruction. This is hinted at in the verse, "and in the end he shall be destroyed." Amalek's consummation is its destruction. In contrast, the Klipos and Sitra Achra derive all their spiritual nurture from the encompassing, i.e. transcendent, level of divine life force known as the Makif, which does not garb itself within them and surely does not unite with them. This explains why in the realm of the Klippa there are 11 crowns, 10 forces of Klippa apart from the light of holiness, which nurtures them from afar but does not unite with them. They thus have no real or lasting existence in their own right. They are merely sustained from afar by the encompassing level of divine life force. This is their allotted portion until the end of days, when their ultimate end will come about and they will be nullified, no trace of them remaining. Now the forces of the Sitra Achra, which are nurtured by the leavings of the most extrinsic aspects of holiness that came into being from the breakage of the vessels of Tohu by means of the multitudinous stages in the chain-like scheme of descent called Hishtalshelus, have no true or lasting existence at all. They are intrinsically non-entities, inasmuch as they derive from a lack of divine desire, and the measurement that applies to them is one of withdrawal. They therefore have an appointed endpoint at which they will utterly cease to exist. In contrast to the side of holiness, the Klipos derive their existence from a lack of divine desire, and were therefore sundered from God's unity. They have no existence other than the animation which they receive from the encompassing level of divine light. When this source is removed, they will be totally cut off from life and will be utterly obliterated. This is the meaning of the above quoted verse. God has set a limit to darkness. The darkness of Klippa has a limited time, after which the Klipos will be utterly destroyed and annihilated, since they originate from a lack of divine desire. The plan to nullify the nations and eliminate non-Israelites from existence is far older than Kabbalistic thought. It is found in the Tanakh and in 2nd Esdras. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 15 through 17 states, "Behold, the nations are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beasts thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing, and vanity." Isaiah chapter 41, verse 29 states, "Behold, they are all vanity. Their works are nothing. Their molten images are wind and confusion." 2nd Esdras chapter 6 states, "Then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by none other. Then answered I, and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And after these Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures. Of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. As for the other people, which also came of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And now, O Lord, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us, and to devour us. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? You can learn more about the nullification of the nations into the Kabbalistic Abyss in my books Rise Above the Gods Who Hate Us and Satanic Secrets of Jesus Christ, Volume 3, in which I delve very deeply into the Galya Raza. You can find my books at my website, CJB Books.com. There will be a link to it in the description below.